Hello and welcome to another episode of In Devotion and Creation with Alyssa. I feel so excited to have my first official music industry guest on this podcast today. And this lovely woman's name is Esha Fae. So I'm going to share a couple words about her and then we will dive right in. Esha is a multidisciplinary artist, singer-songwriter, music producer, multimedia visual creator. She grew up in the entertainment industry and has been backstage at many festivals in her lifetime. She started working professionally in festival production, VJing, and AV tech work at 11 years old. Amazing. And this really shaped her path into immersive art, sound, and creative storytelling. So, alongside her own artistry, Esha also works as an artist manager, agent, and creative director. She supports musicians with touring, release strategy, and overall project management. And she co founded Resonance Chrysalis with Ruby Chase. This is how we met, and works closely with Ruby Chase as her manager and creative support. And Ruby is, if you don't know, a wonderful electronic music artist, singer, songwriter, just multi-dimensional artist who has been really inspiring for me over the last couple of years. So Esha was born in Byron Bay, Australia, and grew up traveling the world. She is now in Mexico, now
Hmm.
living and in Mexico. So beautiful. So, wow. Esha is one of the wonderful souls that I have had the pleasure of meeting through a very vibrant online space and then got to meet in person for the first time earlier this year when she visited New York and I got to
Hmm.
bring her around to some lovely spots and it was just so wonderful to connect with you, Esha. Thank you so much for being here.
Yay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share also a little bit about Resonance Chrysalis, that this
Mhm.
is a program that I signed up for also earlier this year in March 2025.
Mhm.
And it is an artist incubator. So for people who are in the music industry as singer-songwriters, as music producers, or people who really want to break into the music industry from this place that I would really describe as like grassroots, as homegrown, as like do it yourself, as like cultivating community around you to create
Mhm.
your career as a musical artist versus going like the more traditional musical route. Um, and yeah, my gosh, this is what I feel so excited to talk with you about today because I just feel so inspired by what I'm seeing in the music industry and people like really taking the reins on their own creative expression and how they want to bring that into the world. And I feel that what you do and what is done within the beautiful community that is Resonance, it's so it's just really, really inspiring. So, yeah, I wanted to just open the conversation, Esha, by asking you, this podcast is called In Devotion and Creation, and so I would love to know, like, in your words, what are you devoted to?
Mm. I absolutely love that question. I'm devoted to devotion. I am devoted to beauty.
Mm,
If I was to sum it all up, to beauty and connection and intimacy with ourselves and with our communities and with the earth, I really feel that if we're in the right relation with ourselves, with our community, and with the earth, you know, then we're doing life right. And a really great channel of that is by creating beauty through flowers, through art, through sharing from the heart, through connecting. So yeah.
So beautiful. Yes, I hear you. And gosh, I wanted to bring up a fun story of just something that happened for me this week that I feel will start to illuminate like what I see in the music world right
Mhm.
now and what I know that you're a part of as well. So I had the pleasure of seeing Porangi perform,
Mhm.
who is an amazing multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter, music producer who just creates these beautiful experiences of him on stage with his beloved doing backup vocals and like really beautiful spoken word. And he improvises his entire show. It is just him
Mhm.
singing and pulling up tracks um, and playing all of these beautiful instruments.
Mhm.
Not to mention that in the beginning, he creates this really beautiful moment of like everyone dropping in together, calling
Mhm.
directions, like really honoring
Mhm.
the earth, honoring each other, honoring our bodies. And so I got to see him this week, and I was just in Austin for 7 days. It was like such a beautiful experience. And to come back to New York and enter into this community
Mhm.
was produced by friends of mine at Dance Beyond, this really vibrant dance
Mhm.
community that's here in New York City. And so he had his performance on Tuesday, and then Wednesday night he held a workshop called Music is Medicine, where we all were invited to share our voices and create music in unison, right? It was so beautiful.
Mhm.
And so I bring this up because one of the things that I love seeing is like I said, artists taking their career into their own hands in the sense
Mhm.
that like we get to create whatever we want. This is not just like this doesn't have to just be me going and giving a performance and, having people cheer and clap. Beautiful. Like so yes, like
Mhm.
I love the arts. I love going to see all kinds of shows, all kinds of musicians, all kinds of acts, but there's something so beautiful around artists bringing it into like ceremony, artists making it personal. Like, and I'm so curious if you could speak to that. What
Mhm.
you, yeah, maybe just like, was there you grew up in the music world. Were you always exposed to this kind of like do it yourself artistry? Or did you at some point like encounter that and have some kind of realization of, oh wow, like this is really beautiful. This is kind of the track that I want to go on. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that question. Well, I was actually raised in a hippie family in sort of like an alternative, in a very alternative way. I come from a family of musicians. My dad, he plays pretty much every single instrument. And while he was always backstage at festivals, he was also, a really, really talented musician himself and has released multiple albums and is always making more music. So I kind of saw it from both sides, from behind the stage and through the lens of being a musician, being in a family of musicians, being surrounded by artists and musicians. I was raised actually, I didn't even live in a house when I was younger. We lived in a huge warehouse that was a big artist community, multiple different warehouses that was basically just people who lived to create. There weren't even like bedrooms. It was just like studios and mattresses on the floor. So I was raised in a very non-conventional way in that sense and also grew up traveling the world. So I've seen pretty much every side of the industry from a very young age, from being surrounded by very famous people, meeting very famous people through my dad working with them. And when I say famous people, I mean everything from like mainstream, like Lady Gaga, to like Xavier Rudd or Knocker Bear, like these more kind of conscious, well known artists as well.
Mhm.
Um, so I really just saw, and also like a lot of spirit, like gurus in India. I really like seeing the whole kind of all the different ways that you can move through and choose different paths. But my background is coming from more of a hippie family where I'm from in Australia. Byron Bay is pretty much like the epicenter of conscious culture in all of Australia. It's where you go if you want to be, going to ecstatic dances or connecting or seeing people like Dea Dover. That's where she lives. So yeah, to answer your question, it's never something I had to really like come to because I was just always immersed in all of it. And there's always an element of any musician that is doing it themselves. Like no one can sing
Mm.
for you, no one can play the music for you or be that persona for you. So there is always an element of that. But then what we're speaking to is essentially there's big companies, management companies, record labels. It's definitely changed the whole um ecosystem of what that looks like has been changing every year and evolving every year as we've kind of moved into this more modern age. um but yeah, there's definitely some artists that have less autonomy in their choices of their branding, of their touring. And I've had experiences collaborating with some of that kind of artists even recently. And it was an intense energy when, especially that kind of LA, Hollywood, this is how it's done. It's very cutthroat. And so more recently I actually had an experience of that very like mainstream like corporate music industry energy, and I had to pull the plug and be like, I'm not actually involving myself in this because it really didn't sit right with me. So
Mm.
more I've kind of come from the other end, coming from the grassroots, even though I've seen it all, and then realized through almost having like my naivety popped a little bit because I've always been, luckily in my artist management career, working with artists like Ruby Chase or Temple Step Project, who honestly they're my family. They're people who I'm very close with on a personal level, and their family for life. So there's a deeper essence of devotion that we have to each other's hearts and to tending to each other as people. And then I kind of had this recently like abrasive experience where I was like, whoa, this is what it feels like when you're kind of more operating in this corporate music
Mm.
machine. And it definitely didn't sit right with me, and it wasn't in resonance with me. So it was a great learning lesson. Yeah.
Mm. Whew. Wow. Yeah, thank you so much. I love getting this peek into your history and just you really grew up around music. And so you have this really
Mm-hmm.
personal, like what's coming up for me is this the sort of somatic response that you had in this more like traditional music context versus, as you said, these artists that you have this closeness to and you have this kinship with. And that's, I got to be honest, like I just feel that this aspect of like the music world is really just gonna grow and grow. I told some friends the other day, like around 2017, 18, I had this kind of um like epiphany, like, oh my gosh, we're coming into the 2020s, like the new
Mm-hmm.
20s, like this time of renaissance, that it just felt I just kind of felt that like viscerally. And now we're here in 2025 and I know that not everyone sees what you and I see, right? Like not
Mm-hmm.
everyone is plugged into the sort of like festival circuit and how big and vast and beautiful and varied that is, or, even ecstatic dance. Like there are so many people I love, and I have like been so immersed in the ecstatic dance world in New York and, in a couple of other places that I visited. And I met a young man this week who had grown up in New York and
Mm-hmm.
he has been to all these festivals and he entered into, like, he was invited into the ecstatic dance community here in New York. And he was like, "Oh my God, like these are my people. Like I didn't know that y'all existed. I thought that I had to travel and like go to a festival somewhere to like get this kind of vibe." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's still so many people who don't get that there are people who are out here like producing music, DJing, creating these like beautiful dance spaces where it's really around people connecting deeply with their bodies and being in union, communion with each other and in celebration of life." And what I'm hearing and what you're saying is it's just like you had this visceral response of like, wow, this feels very different from this. And it's like we create we continue to create the culture with where we put our time and energy and essence. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I'm so curious to hear you share like what feels really exciting for you right now in your artistry or in like what you're working on with artists that you know. Perhaps you might say a couple words about resonance. I know we really haven't touched on that yet, but yeah.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah, I'd like to also just follow up on what we were just speaking to
Mhm.
and share that, you know, I think a big part of the reason it is how it is in the music industry is because there's it's much easier to make money when you are operating as a corporate shark. You're ruthless, you're making cutthroat decisions, you're kind of, or maybe to reiterate, it's a lot harder to make money when you're holding your hands out like this and trying to rise the whole tribe up with you. And I would say that's what the mission is of myself and of Ruby Chase and of Resonance Chrysalis is we're trying and are have created this platform that is lifting up multiple artists all at once and creating this platform as a safe space for people to feel like they have a platform. And, you know, there's different collaborators I see doing this, such as Quantimus. He has a festival called High Vibe Fest,
Mhm.
which is if you're wanting, because again, festivals are very varied. When we talk about festivals, are we talking about Coachella? Or are we talking, you know, there
Mhm.
even within the festival industry, there's a vast difference of what kind of experience you could be having depending on what you're attending. If you go to a festival that's a little bit more mainstream, like Coachella, it's a drinking culture, you know, it's more
Mhm.
about like who is the most like famous up and coming kind of pop artists
Yeah.
of the moment. And it's, you know, it's more about like your Instagram photo and all of those kind like I'm sure that people are still having anything is always like what you choose to take from it. Like I'm sure you can still have deep experiences, but in general, like if you're going to a festival like High Vibe Fest or to in Australia, we have some OG festivals like Earth Frequency Festival and a few really more like grassrootsy. It's there, you know, it's opens with like an indigenous ceremony and like every part of the lineup is curated and
Mm.
there's an intention, there's an energetic gridding that happens from the space holders, and that is the festival industry I grew up in. My dad was one of the first people to start producing psychedelic bush stuffs, which is what we call kind of the electronic music scene in Australia. A bush duff is basically taking a PA out into the forest, into the bush, and playing, you know, psychedelic music. And usually people are taking psychedelic substances, and but there's a
Oh.
really intentional space holding that happens even from the production team. And I've seen this working, for instance, at Lightning in a Bottle in California, being a part of the Compass team there before people even arrive on site. The whole team's gathering and they're anchoring in the energy, and they have the sacred fire going that have different elders from different lineages holding, and it burns 24/7 the whole festival, and
Yeah.
it's there to hold that anchor of light because festivals are also a big energy in the sense that, you know, people are taking substances generally, whether that be more psychedelic, more natural substances, or alcohol, or more synthetic substances.
Mhm.
People are most likely always, going to be taking them. So that does create, like, we're energetic beings, and these substances can amplify certain frequencies within us when we're tapping into that, especially on a big, especially when there's like thousands of people gathering on one stage, like going through a similar shared experience. So that's just one thing I wanted to speak to, that when we're talking about like festival culture,
Mhm.
there's also such a vast kind of palette that we can be talking to in that way as well. Um, and same with the music industry, depending on, because for instance, the experience I recently had was actually with a more conscious artist in some senses, but they just happened to be working with a really corporate company, and they found a lot of success for their artist career, and they have built a multi-million-dollar empire doing that. But that is how they've been able to build a multi-million-dollar empire, is because their manager and their lawyer and their business team and their agent are cutthroat. And
Yeah.
I came in a little bit more like, hey, I'm here to like lead from the heart, and like,
Mm.
I'm used to being more in that kind of family vibe where I'm getting on Zooms with my artists. And I'm like, oh, it's day one of my bleed. Like, I'm just very like
Yeah.
honest and vulnerable. And that's how I was used to being in dialogue with, the people that I'm also professionally creating with. And I wouldn't want it to be any other way.
Mm.
And they were kind of like, who is this woman? And I was kind of like, who are these people?
Mm.
There just wasn't that like coherence. There wasn't a resonance there. So yeah, I just want to speak to that a big facet of where this kind of intense energy in the music industry comes from is, in a lot of ways, there's a truth that that's how you can really monetize your career. It's not the only way, but it is a very efficient way to be doing that.
Mhm.
And that's a choice. Speak
Totally.
to like my relationship with Ruby. We are currently looking for an agent for her, and we had a choice at a couple moments, and she's had choices throughout her career to go with some of these more big corporate giants, but she's actually like felt into it and had to listen. Even though on a career level that would have maybe been a really good move for her, on a integrity level it wasn't. It
Mhm.
didn't sit right, and that's sort of just a choice that each individual, there's no right or wrong choice, because integrity is also, depending on who the person is and what their definition is of their integrity. But that's something to get real with, and that's what I had to recently get real with and be like, oh, okay, this was actually a deep, even though I was going to be receiving a massive amount of money as well through that, it was like, okay, but this actually doesn't align to my integrity, therefore
Yeah.
it's not worth it for me, because if my spirit and my heart are not aligned, then I can't like put energy into that in a good way.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm hearing this, thread that I have been noticing in so many conversations that I've had recently around values and really
Mm-hmm.
actually being anchored in our values and having that be a guiding light in our lives. I just know from personal experience now, having gone on many journeys in my days where I like was just kind of doing what I thought was the right thing or that was expected of me, and
Mm-hmm.
having to sort of correct myself and recognize at some point, like, wait, this doesn't feel right. Like, this relationship
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel right, or this, choice in like the work that I'm doing doesn't feel right. And it's just this constant like correcting for what actually feels aligned,
Mm-hmm.
and where my values are. And I just think, there's such a there as you said, like there's always, we all have different choices to make. We all have different values. There might be somebody who wants to go that more traditional path and that feels good for them. But if that really doesn't sit right with one's own soul, it's like, well, we have so much life ahead of us. Like, would I
Mhm.
rather actually be rooted in my values and in like be in integrity with myself and make choices from that place in my
Mhm.
career in any area of my life versus compromising something and then
Mhm.
and then opening up that sort of like channel of choices that comes from compromise versus one that comes from what is true.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as I was saying, like this sort of sense that I've had of us being in the midst of this renaissance, I really feel like we're going to see it in this, like we're going to see it in a whole new level come like the 30s, right? Like a couple more years of all of these people around, literally around the world, who are starting to recognize what you and I recognize of, oh, if we don't like the way that it's being done over here, let's go focus our energy in, ways that feel aligned for us and with people
Mhm.
that we really enjoy, like our tribe, our people, the people with whom we resonate. Because I have found this myself. Like I would so much rather build with people that like get my heart and that I trust implicitly, that I know that
Mhm.
I can communicate with and say anything to.
Mhm.
And there's something, in that way, there's like this uncompromising nature
Mhm.
that actually I feel is so, it's, it flies in the face of a culture that can still be like a sort of mainstream culture that can still be so like I want it now, or I want the big money. I want the, again, nothing wrong with that. And it's like what fits right with what sits
Mhm.
right with one's own soul.
Mhm.
So yeah, something that I'll share about Resonance Chrysalis is this. I believe I mentioned before is an artist incubator that you and Ruby started, and y'all, when I tell you, this experience this year has been so massive for me. Like just being in this space with people literally around the world who are, out there as vocalists, as music producers across the spectrum of like people who are just beginning and have like a dream in their heart and a willingness to show up and learn the skills. And then people who have already been in the industry for a while who are like doing their thing and making music already, and have, developed some kind of a platform. But to see like the sort of garden of creation that you all have tended and created, and then having these, amazing artists like Equanimous, like Queen Herbie,
Mhm.
like Mose come in and do these incredible master classes and sort of handing down to
Mhm.
other artists, to young artists, to people who are sort of new in this world,
Mhm.
the wisdom and the knowledge and even the skills that they have learned. Like I just was so blown away by this community. I knew I needed to be in it because I was like, wow, this, like I want to, put my money where, where it's gonna like not just serve me, but also literally like serve this thing that I believe in. And yeah, I'm so curious to hear yeah, what that journey has been like for you, what joy has come out of it for you, if there's any like challenges that you want to talk about, or perhaps like the future of resonance, anything that you want to say about it.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to share about this. This has definitely been a deep devotion of mine over the last 2 years, really, year and a half, 2 years now. Yeah, I guess I'll just start from the start. Essentially, Ruby has had in the past couple of years before we launched Resonance Chrysalis run a small 3-month container called Resonance Cocoon. And it was basically just like a winter time in the States, like 3 months short artist development container that she led and had some similar kind of themes of having guest teachers come in. But she had found that it wasn't quite long enough, that, people really needed to like spend time building, and it takes time to build something. I like that you mentioned the garden, because that's actually how we view this. Is it's an ecosystem, it is a garden. You need to tend to plant the seeds, water every single day, and be in the devotion to. So basically, her and I just love collaborating together. I was already working with her on her team, helping with different parts like video editing for her, and we were just kind of always weaving. We both have been involved with this community called the Academy of Oracle Arts in Nevada City, led by this wonderful woman called Isis Indria. So we had sort of been like in the similar circle through that. And yeah, she basically approached me and said, do you want to help me do this thing? And I was just immediately like, fuck yes, let's go. And we actually ended up sitting with it. It came in a very clear, in ceremony, a very clear, like, not right now. This is not the time. So we actually sat on Resonance Chrysalis for almost a year, like 8 or 9 months. We really just let it like gestate under the surface. And then it came like a clear kind of moment that it was time to launch Resonance Chrysalis. And yeah, we really just magnetized a really beautiful team that just all feel like family to help run it. And yeah, so Resonance Chrysalis is, as you mentioned, an artist incubator container. But what does that mean? So we have basically created a structure over a whole year to go through the different stages of the chrysalis, of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, going through the stage of becoming goo and going deep into that cocoon, and then eventually emerging into a butterfly, shaking off your wet, floppy wings and taking flight. And that is a process that we all go through in life. And there's a real magic when you intentionally take yourself through that process. And it is something that Ruby and I like to do regularly for ourselves. It's not something that you just do once and then you're done. It's something to regularly keep assessing and tending to. But that is basically the year-long program that we designed. And yeah, it has, where it's November now, so it's been happening for 11 months, which is amazing. We're nearly at where the whole year of the program, which feels just kind of wild. It has been, as I said, such a deep devotion. We have calls every single Tuesday. So every Tuesday for the whole year have just been in that portal, locking in with the community, running different calls. We've had all different guest teachers and community members, everyone from music producers to lawyers to managers and people who run record labels, to come in and share their different insights with our community. And we also give, we have like a roadmap that gives more detailed support for the artists. We've given them templates. I've helped so many artists build their EPKs and even, learn the language, because there is a whole language that comes with being in the music industry. Some artists might have already had an EPK that we could help refine. Some people don't even have an electronic press kit.
Yes.
Yeah, which is basically, it's just like you can use it for different purposes, but it's basically just like the culmination of like all of your pitches, your videos, your bios and different things like that, to help share yourself with festivals and with different agents or managers, things like that. So yeah, we've basically just supported all of the building blocks of what an artist's career would need, because there is a lot of pieces that you need to get into place to even be ready to be booked, to be ready to release music, to all the skills that takes time to get into the mastery of, and as I said, learning the vocabulary of. So we really just like created a space to break it down in a really simplified yet like detailed way for our butterflies, our emerging butterflies. And there has definitely been so many growth points for myself personally, just to speak to the challenges. I, yeah, I have felt myself just, I haven't really been in the container program in the same way as our participants because I've been like holding the space for it. But in my own way, that has been my own chrysalis journey and it has stretched me and taken me out of my comfort zone in so many ways, so
Mhm.
many ways, which I have loved so much. And yeah, it's been really just like, there's your your integrity as a leader gets questioned just by like the mirror of the universe when you're showing up in these kind of containers and holding space. Like you really get to go through some deep self-reflection. And I feel like as a team, we have definitely been in that process of holding each other accountable, calling each other forward where we haven't maybe like followed through with our word or done something to the best of our capacity. And it's all been within such a loving, safe way that's happened. And I'm so grateful for that. But it has definitely, I would say, for all of us, Ruby and all of the core team, been such a deep journey. We've actually this week been in a deep reflection as a team and having kind of like reconciliation, accountability calls with all of the team members. And in that, it's just really a self reflection. And what we all realize is how much we've all grown, how because when you're having to essentially communicate with the same people every single day, it goes beyond your ego. It goes beyond any of these things because you have people that are paying you for you to tend to them in this space.
Mm.
That's a deep responsibility. And through that, we've all had to really like look at, our communication styles, or again, like where are we not following through? Or, for me, I tend to get really comfortable being behind the scenes.
Mm.
Sort of I guess a symptom of my childhood is being backstage. I find that really comfortable. I find it really comfortable to be the one like setting up all the gear, or be the one behind the camera, or the one running the sound and the lights. But it's been definitely more of an initiation for me to step into my leadership in a more public way and to speak, to groups of people and to kind of, I've got a Cancer rising, so I'm like a little crab in my shell. So I've, I've definitely been like poked out of my shell many, many times. And I recently just saw you in New York, and then I flew to California where I was for the last 3 months. And yeah, I went to High Vibe Festival with Sugar Salone, who's our marketing director, and Ruby, and I was teaching workshops there and ran a resonance panel and danced on stage with Ruby and got to really kind of like confront this part of me that has felt very shy.
Mm.
It was a very that that has probably been on a personal level my deepest challenge is just getting out of my own way, um, and continues to be a deep, uh, yeah, deep devotion of mine to myself. So yeah, that's to sort of speak a little bit to the behind the scenes of resonance, and we've definitely just been more than anything in the listening. Uh, Ruby and I really like to operate on an oracular level, operate with our senses open to, behind the silence, what's behind the veil of what we can't necessarily see on a tangible level, but can be felt without the whole being. And within that, we've been just really in the listening for what has been needed for this container, what people have been asking for as well. And we are right now deciding and designing what next what the next iteration of the chrysalis looks like. There's not too much I can speak to because we're honestly still a little bit in the goo stage. But
Mm,
it's definitely, we've got some really exciting projects and shifts happening specifically around Ruby's project, artist project. There's a lot of energy being redirected into that right now because, this year has been basically a full-time job, for all of us to put all of us to some degree put our own artistry on pause in order to run this container.
mm,
And we're really like restructuring it so that we can be fully pouring into our own artist careers as well.
mhm.
So yeah, there's a few different like I'll just like drop hints of potential collaborations with High Vibe Fest and a few things that are unfolding there. And we're also really focusing next year on niching down more because that was the biggest feedback that we had from artists was that they wanted to like really sink their teeth into like a deep dive of music production or a deep dive of the business or a deep dive of vocal production and singing or how to
Mm.
songwrite. So we are going to be having a lot more of a niched funnels for these different routes that you can take. But that's all I can really share for now on it.
Totally understand. And yeah, it's been so interesting to witness this because I feel that like y'all came with so much, like
Mhm.
offering so much from your heart and from your vast knowledge of like you and Ruby and this whole team of people and all the, guests that you've had. And it's so like it's the sweetest thing. And I've seen this. In my own life, like having just so much to offer that you're like, here you go. And then it's like, wow, like the systems of individuals can get a little bit like, there's so much here, like I can't digest it all, right? And so
Mhm.
I totally hear you in this like process of, okay, well, now that we have so much to offer, how do we structure it in a way that makes it more digestible, that makes it more accessible for people? And really, really just want to give you such props for just doing the thing. Like it's so it never ceases to amaze me the fruits of what comes when people just have an idea and have a
Mhm.
vision and come together to have it happen and to like let go of it being perfect because there is no
Mhm.
perfection. There's just like creation and then iteration and like review and then and reassessment and
Mhm.
meeting those places of initiation, right? When you talk about the like being in the goo of the chrysalis, that's I I experience that as we are continuously met by initiations, and are we willing
Mhm.
to walk through this one? And are we willing to walk through this one together? Are we willing to trust each other that we can, meet on the other side and even in those sticky moments, right, still
Mhm.
hold true to the vision, still be rooted in what it is that we're all here for. And to me, I really just feel like these kinds of spaces, these kinds of businesses and operations are going like this is part of the future. This is part of the trajectory that we're on as the world becomes more like just we have so much access to so much information, right? And like it's sort of we do have the capacity to do whatever we want in this world, right? I think about this with like the electronic music, for example, the explosion of electronic music around the world. And why is that? Because it brought like people could just begin to make music on their computers. They could
Mhm.
put together sounds on their computers. It's sort of like, instead of the having to go rent a studio and, hire all these musicians and, have it be this big long process. It's like you think about all these people who have just been like, I'm gonna make it, I'm
Mhm.
gonna make music from my computer. and now like look at this industry and it's just going to
Mhm.
continue to grow, and you see how like electronic music has made its way into the mainstream, right? So much more that I want to say about that. I want to do an episode about like my journey into electronic music.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
but yeah, I think, you know, what I'm hearing and what you shared too is like a business is such a spiritual endeavor. It really is. Like an artistry, having like anyone, we have the ability to create art, right? But
Mhm.
but if you're someone who wants to bring your artistry out into the world, right?
Mhm.
As a business, as like an offering, that is such a spiritual endeavor, right?
Mhm.
And then to do it with other people to create, yeah, to create like a business operation and have it again stay rooted in like the vision, the shared vision, and the sense of like family
Mhm.
and intimacy. Like that's it really takes something. So really just want to congratulate you on like this,
Thank you.
yeah, everything that you've done and created, and um something I hope that people, I'm excited for more people to know what you're up to and to have their eyes on
Mhm.
it because it's
Mhm.
really special. And um yeah. Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to say on that note? Because I do have another question for you.
Mm. I think it was just interesting what you were speaking to on that it is more accessible for people to be artists in a way now. You know, you don't, as you said, you don't have to like invest $10,000 or plus, like $30,000 into hiring audio engineers and musicians and, session musicians, studios, all the things. Like now we just have our laptops and we can just get microphones like this and have, like little MIDI keyboards like this and be able to like create any sound we want
Hmm.
anywhere in the world. Um, and with that, we are seeing, a big boom in the industry of YouTubers that are sharing how to produce music and different, um, figures in the field that can share this knowledge. And
Hmm.
with that, I'm thinking of something my friend Irene said, which is that we need more managers, we need more people supporting the artists because we do have such a huge boom of people being independent artists. That's where the industry is at right now, is people that are independent artists that can just like upload and distribute their own music through symphonic or DistroKid, these different distributors. And like it's a very different world than it was when you had to like be signed to a record label and like going through this process. And while we still see, as we spoke to earlier in the episode, like more kind of corporate, like professional, intense kind of way of doing that business side of things, there's also so much available online for us to develop our artistry and our careers. And yeah, I think there is a need for people to like have the support in that and the guidance in that. And also, yeah, I guess I just want to share that it is like it is just so possible for whatever your dream is. If your dream is to be playing big festival stages, there's obviously certain strategy and things you can follow to make that easier for yourself, which is why you might work with someone like myself or, Irene from High Vibe Fest. Um, it's it's just so much more accessible. And I think that's a really cool thing to recognize, that even learning music production, you can learn anything you want and need on YouTube. You don't need to even go anywhere else. And while for me, I prefer to be in a container, I prefer to have peers that I can be more in like kind of tangible shared journey with on that. Um, yeah, I just wanted to speak to that. It is just so epic how accessible it is to basically create and do whatever you wish these days. You know, the internet has really opened up so many possibilities on that front.
Yes. Yes, and I just want to echo what you said on I'm so grateful that we have the access that we do to like learning whatever we want to
Mm-hmm.
learn, and really want to highlight that
Mm-hmm.
having community, having like a container or a space like Resonance Chrysalis, or like people that you're in, sort of accountability with, and like a shared,
Mm-hmm.
um, even just, yeah, being able to share like the triumphs and the struggles, and being able to
Mm-hmm.
say like, hey, I created this new thing, or this is what I'm working on, and getting feedback. Like
Totally.
that to me has been so key. I felt so alone,
Yeah.
before coming into Resonance. And then I was like, oh my gosh, wow, suddenly I have this, whole community of people that I can draw from. It was a, it was a big experience for me. And I also have like so many other things that I'm up to, but I will tell you that it really it had me feel more, um, like over the last, maybe 5 months, I've started to feel so much more rested in, oh, everything that I want to create is actually available to me. It's
Mm-hmm.
all here. And I have just had to get right with that, like it's gonna take time, and it's gonna just be a
Mm-hmm.
process, and to learn to enjoy the process. And that
Mm-hmm.
my unique ecosystem, right? Even like creating this podcast was such a big deal for me, putting energy
Mm-hmm.
now into my YouTube, like continuing to tend the relationships with people in my life who I see, okay, it's not that time yet, but I know I want to make music with this person. I
Mm-hmm.
know I want to put my vocals on, on their tracks. Like it's so cool now to have that sense of, oh, like I can do this. I actually have the power to do this. And, it's like every day putting one foot in front of the other. And
Totally.
yeah, I'm so, I feel so excited. I feel so excited to see
Mm-hmm.
what comes for all of us. And yeah, just I'm thinking about what you said about the festival culture, earlier in the episode, and just want to sort of bring attention for a moment to the fact that, Woodstock was a massive event, right? That happened not that long ago. And to
Mm-hmm.
see, over, this was several decades ago, and now in the last like 2 decades, 3 decades, to see the explosion of festival culture. Like Woodstock was a big deal, and now there are festivals happening literally all over the planet all
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
this says to me is like people are being called back to the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of celebration. They're being called back to
Mm-hmm.
music as a thing that unites us, right? As dance, and the dance floor as a space that unites us. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I will forever champion artists and music, because like it's like when people are in celebration, and when they're dancing, and when they're
Mm-hmm.
enjoying each other in music, in the spirit of music, there's no room for conflict there,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like to me, the musicians and the music makers and the dancers, and like the creators and all the people showing up to support these endeavors, like we are the sowers of peace in the world. We are the
Mm-hmm.
sowers of harmony, literally, right? And so I just really feel that for anyone who's not like plugged into this sort of culture, that my invitation would be to get plugged into it, in some way, to you know even for example, like to seek for people in your local music scene, not just
Mm-hmm.
like the big famous acts that come to town, right? But like seek for your local DJs
Mm-hmm.
and musicians and artists and ecstatic dances, right? Because that
Yeah.
that is like that's where you find I mean, I think family can be found anywhere, but like there's so many people who are attuned to like family and community, you know, and tribe of people that we're like can be body to body, like face to face with, right? Wherever we are. But then again, as we travel, like me being able to go to a festival or to an ecstatic dance in another city and instantly connect with people and feel
Mhm.
like, oh, like I have tribe here as well. It's just so
Mhm.
beautiful. So,
Mhm.
yeah, wow. So, thank you so much for being here again. This is just, I mean, I knew that this was going to be a really rich conversation. Um, as we begin to bring this to a close, I would love to hear, you know, what is yeah, like what is a dream that you have for yourself as an artist? Um, or even just if you wanted to speak poetically or in any kind of way around your own song making, your own artistry, and yeah, I would love to hear about that, Esha.
Thank you. Yeah, I am currently working on an album with my beloved,
Oh,
which feels really beautiful. It's like stripped back acoustic, him and myself singing, and we have the guitar. And yeah, I've always been a wordsmith since I was very little. My first form of art has always been poetry, and I love writing, and I feel that, yeah, I have a lot to share through my use of words and poetry. So it feels really, really juicy to be bringing that to life in this way. So that is something that's currently in the kind of, yeah, in the chrysalis stages. Quite we've got all the songs written. We're just like going through and recording and producing them at the moment. And yeah, just a lot of music really. I have actually Sugar Salone, our marketing director for Resonance Chrysalis, as we speak, is on a plane from LA to Mexico to come stay with my love and myself here in our apartment. And yeah, that's going to be a juicy little music creation portal as well, because we are all artists within
yeah.
within um, the team of Resonance as well. Um, yeah, so many things. We are always creating like different visual art. You can see on the fridge here. This
Mm,
is from one of our companies called Sacred Swag, which we create visual art for artists, different like album or different cover art for their tracks or merch lines or whatever's needed. So that's something that's just kind of always unfolding. Um, yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to also shout out because you mentioned it before, like for anyone listening, you know, this is we obviously love the arts and the artists and the music makers here, but just want to also, you know, really encourage that people who have all kinds of skill sets as like managers or as like marketers, you know, or as like tech, you know, wizards, like also so important to keeping, you know, people in like the music world, in the world of the arts running and like having like a, you
Mhm.
know, an operation that actually works and then has, you know, the music and the art and the celebration be experienced out in the world. So I just want to give a shout out to those people and say like you're so important and needed here as well.
Totally. And that's actually how I started managing artists, is because,
Mm,
there's this funny kind of belief that I feel like there's like the artist type, or there's like the type A kind of organized type of brain, and then there's like the crazy artist.
mm,
It seems to fit, that archetype does seem to fit a lot of people, but at the same time, I feel like that's just like a weird conditioning. But
mm,
anyway, my point of that is I'm not either. I'm very organized, and I'm also like such a channel, and I live
mm,
and create art. Like, I'll be on manager meetings, like talking about like intense budgets there with my canvas painting at the same time. Like that's just kind of how I live, you know, there's always the balance of the both.
Yeah.
Um, but the point is that like that's how I started managing artists was because I just, you know, being in the scene, I came from the festival production side of things. I've always been working with artists, producing events and festivals, stage managing, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And people just recognized that I had such a brain for like spreadsheets and management and like travel coordination and all the things. And I
Mm.
got like requested to manage Temple Step. That's how I got into it. He, yeah,
Oh.
basically was like, I want your brain. And also like it's important with managers, like it's a networking thing as well. And because I am very networked internationally, not only in the Australian music scene and entertainment industry, but also, you know, worldwide in the States and other international places. So that's definitely like a big piece of being an artist manager is like what networks that you have access to.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that's definitely a role that I've always seen myself since a very young age holding as a networker is being able to, you know, connect the threads of who's meant to be where at what time and who's meant to meet for, you know, a higher purpose.
Mhm.
But yeah, I love what you just shared. Definitely, we need more people supporting the arts in all the different ways. It takes a lot of teamwork, like going back to what you were sharing before about community. You know, we don't have to do it alone. Like as I was sharing, like there's so many resources on YouTube and all these different platforms, and that's amazing. That's super empowering. And also it can be really isolating.
Mm.
We don't need to do it alone. That's literally why we started Resonance Chrysalis, is because myself and Ruby, like Ruby was like, I don't want to do this alone. Where's my soul tribe? Like let's get in the cocoon together and like go through the process and have support and have accountability and have direction from people who have already gone through that process 100 more times than us, you know, because any artist you see, they've gone through that process, whether they consciously knew it or not. They were going through that chrysalis, going through the death and rebirth cycles of becoming
Mm.
themselves, you know, and that's really what it is. It's a becoming of self,
Mm.
which takes a lot of birthing, and it also takes a lot of letting shit die, letting stuff that doesn't, you know, serve us, stepping out of our own way and really just like letting ourselves be the conduit for whatever, you know, our individual transmission is meant to be here on the earth. Um, and that's really, you know, where the medicine is of these different communities is that more and more people are stepping into their power and recognizing that the greatest gift they could ever give to their communities and to the planet and to consciousness is their authenticity, is their own unique vibration, like transmitted through the heart, of course. Um, and that's where, you know, that's where you, as you said, that's where you find your tribe, that's where you find your community, that's where the power of coming together in, you know, a unified field with all of our individual gifts, it creates a beautiful rainbow bridge. So
Mm.
yeah.
Ah, yes. Yeah. So beautiful. Ah, such a such a joy to connect with you and um yeah, I feel really, really inspired and just so, like I said, very excited to see what unfolds in the coming years. And
Mhm.
yeah, I suppose the last question I have for you is what would be your words of wisdom for someone who maybe like has a desire to create and to make art, to just bring something, a vision that they have to life, and maybe they feel, you know, scared or you know, afraid of other people's judgments or like overthink things and you know, have trouble just even starting. Yeah, what would be your words of wisdom to such a person?
Mm. There's a couple things I would share to that. On the starting piece, trouble getting started. procrastination, these kinds of things, or just overwhelm and not even knowing where to start, that's a very real part of being a human across the board, whether that's learning a new skill or, that doesn't apply to just being an artist, while it certainly does apply to many artists. I always find when I've been in that state that I just have to do it. You just have to get started. There's nothing else really to say. Then once you get started, you've started the engine and then the momentum goes. It's usually just the thought of starting that holds us back from actually starting. It's like, it's the distance that we feel between where we are and where we want to go that feels overwhelming, that stops us from even starting. But once you start, like, if you think about like that one thing on your to-do list that's been like sitting there for like months or something. I'm thinking about this because I had this happen the other day. I had like something on the to-do list that was sitting there for like a few weeks, and I was just like, I had this like kind of procrastination energy towards it. And as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, that took me literally 20 minutes. It wasn't hard. It was just all in my head that it was difficult. And I just, there's a timing thing. Like sometimes we need to give space for the right time. And also that most of the time can be a bullshit excuse to hold ourselves back from our highest version of self at the end of the day. And I would say to the starting piece, just start. Just push yourself past that starting line, and then momentum will naturally build. And you don't have to have all the steps figured out. Like say you're wanting to like perform on a big stage at a big festival, you don't have to have all the steps figured out from where you are to there. But the thing is, if you never start, you literally will never get there. But at least if you start, you might like fail or whatever a couple of times, but that's just an illusion of the mind anyway. That's actually just learning. That is the path to getting there, is, going like confronting ourselves and like, putting ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And really, really, there is no failure other than if we choose that to be the case. Everything is just an opportunity for higher growth and higher learning. So my advice for that is just start. And then the other aspect I would share with creativity is to just be in the listening. I think a lot of us, I would say the world spends a little bit too much time and energy focusing on the output of what we need to say. Like, you need to build Instagram followers and say this thing and do this thing and like hack the algorithm and have a strategy. And like, yeah, sure, all of that has a place and has a time and has benefit. And again, it's like, are you in the listening to your heart or to your higher self or to the universe, to God, however you want to phrase it as for your context of your life? But again, it's like, how can we be in right relation with ourselves, with our communities, and with the earth? That come to be in right relation with ourselves usually, and with all, and the community and the earth, usually starts with stillness, usually starts with just listening, letting the water, like letting the murky waters settle and become clear and still. And that's where we really like reveal the deeper truth of what we're here for. It can be easy to think we need to chase this thing or do this thing or be this thing, but when it comes to creativity, and also like what you were talking to, the fear of judgment, the challenging moments is my favorite time to write music. When I'm feeling the worst, I usually write the best songs. That's when I have something to say that's relatable. I love writing beautiful song. I right now we just recorded a song called Golden Light, and that song is all about just being in love. And like it, the phrase is like, we are in a state of golden light. And that song is so beautiful. I love it. But the song we recorded before that was called Surrender to the Tides. And I wrote that song after that hard experience I shared at the beginning of the episode, with having to deal with that like intense kind of industry, music business company.
Mm.
And that situation in the moment was very challenging for me. I felt like I had the carpet ripped out from under me. I had a good 4 hour cry in bed about it. And
Mm.
then I just picked up the guitar and I wrote this song. And it just felt so relevant to every single person in my field that I've shared it with. Every single one came back to me saying that it brought them to tears, and that they felt the relevancy of what the message was, which was, sometimes life comes crashing down on us like a heavy rain. And sometimes we just have to let it crash and crumble. And through that, that's how we remember our heart. And through me going through this challenging human experience, that in the moment, yes, it was uncomfortable. Yes, I felt like a failure in that moment. I was having all those self-doubt thoughts coming up. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, what am I doing wrong, universe? But
Mm.
through that, that was where this beautiful alchemy was able to happen, because I put words to it, and I put my voice to it, and I put music to it, and I was able to, we all, that's the thing, that it is so easy to feel isolated and like, as I just said, like, what's wrong with me? But, we're all humans. We all feel the same things, we all have good days and bad days, and we all sometimes doubt ourselves and sometimes feel like sexy creatures. Especially as women, we have cycles that really can affect that as well.
Mhm.
But men as well, like, we all have these cycles, and we can all relate to these different feelings. And if it's not all of us that can relate, there's sure as heaven a whole bunch of people out there that can, So that's what I would speak to, that aspect, is to just share, like, that is the fuel to art. Why else make art if not to, yeah, transmute, to be like a beacon of light, be a lighthouse in the dark, through, like, the crashing waves of the infinite ebb and flow, and pain and confusion and joy and heart bursting connection that is being a human. It's not always easy to be here
Yeah.
and to be in this current state of the world. But the beauty is that we are here, and we're here together, and may as well, connect through that experience rather than feel like we have to be alone. And that's why art is such a powerful conduit, is a powerful transmutation vehicle for society. It is literally
Mm.
what shapes culture. It is the black sheep. It is the artists that feel isolated. It's the sensitive hearts with the wide eyes that are literally just
Mm.
swallowing the whole universe
Mm.
through feeling the pain of the whole world in their own, like, little human heart. Those are the people that may be outcast in certain moments, but they are the ones that literally shape culture and influence culture. And it is actually it doesn't have to feel like pressure, but it is a beautiful responsibility to the planet
Mhm.
to be a sensitive soul, which I would say almost every single artist and every single human really, truly is. I think we're all artists as well, um, at the end of the day. So that would be what I would share to that, is to just let yourself feel, let yourself empty out. Like, we are vessels. Let yourself just empty out and just find the pleasure in it as well. Like, it's so easy to create for an external source of validation. It's so easy to create for Instagram or for whatever the reason is. Like, why come back to the why, come back to the joy, the pleasure, like of what that is as a medicine for you beyond anybody else. Like,
Mm.
why do you, for me, like, why do I want to pick up a guitar and sing? Because I feel like I have wings that sprout from my back and lift me up when I am playing guitar and singing.
Mm.
And that is why, for me, I sing and why I play guitar and why I put energy into it. And through that, I see that there's a medicine that other people are able to get from it. And that's a beautiful thing that I would love to continue sharing with the world. But first and foremost, it's from myself. And then that reaches the community. And then from there, that ripples out to the earth or to the collective consciousness, to this, greater evolutionary path that we're on as a planet, and as a collective ocean of consciousness.
That we are all drops inside of.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Wow. Just stunning. You are a poet. Hear it. I feel it in your essence and in your words. And gosh, just such a pleasure to connect with you, Beauty. Yeah, thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for being here. Thank you to
Thank
all of you who
you.
are listening. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just prayers for you to for this episode to have planted a seed for you,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, a seed for you, and whatever you wish to devote yourself to, whatever you wish to create in the world, that it's here. We're listening. We want it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here. I'm here to hear it and to see what you create. Um, yeah, and music and art is medicine. It gets to be medicine for us, and as a result, it always gets to be medicine for others who receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so thank you for your medicine, Miss Esha. And
Mm-hmm.
is there a way that people can best find you? I'll put your Instagram and any information in the show notes, but yeah, what would you like to share
Mm-hmm.
on that note?
Yeah, the best way would probably just be on Instagram, esha.fae. You
Okay.
can find resonance_chrysalis on Instagram as well. Yeah. I'm
Amazing.
always open for questions, or if people are looking to start or work on their artist careers in any way, for them to shoot me a question and see how we can get involved with each other as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Beauty.
Thank you so
Blessings
much for
to
having
you.
me.
You're so welcome. Sending you so much love.
Woo.